Hello, my name is Elizabeth Mitchell and I am from Long Island, New York, and I am a third grade teacher. The 5 components of reading include comprehension, vocabulary, fluency, phonics, and phonemic awareness. All 5 of these categories have overlap with writing, and each one of them will overlap in its unique way. To start with comprehension, as students learn how to read, they're becoming more familiar with text and analyzing how those words have meaning. So this links to their writing as they're progressing through their reading and writing career. They're starting to make more sense of the complexities of writing, and their comprehension will reflect in their writing as their writing starts to get more advanced. In regard to vocabulary, as the students' reading vocabulary starts to increase, the more they will start using this vocabulary in their writing to make it more advanced and sound more complex. As students progress with their fluency skills, their writing will also reflect that. So if students are becoming more fluent in the way they read a text, they might be starting to develop a more clearly written work. So if they're reading more clearly, their writing will most likely start becoming more clear as well in their grammar and just overall their fluency in their writing. A student who's progressing in the area of phonics is going to be able to identify the different parts of different words and be able to spell words more clearly if they have a good handle on their phonics skills. So the phonics would be a foundational skill that would allow the student to grow in their writing area, and as they progress with their writing, with their reading in phonics and their phonics skills, their writing will reflect that as well. If a student has strong phonological awareness, like phonics, they're going to be able to put together words that might be unfamiliar to them more easily, and their writing will progress with the ability to put together words that they might not be as comfortable with, but that skill and practice will develop their writing moving forward. To get in the habit of reinforcing these 5 literacy skills, there are different strategies that teachers can put in place to make this fun and engaging in the classroom and something that the students will look forward to. One way that I like to encourage the development of comprehension in my classroom is to allow students to work with other students with reading. So we call it buddy reading, and when students buddy read, typically one of them will read a page and then the other one will tell them what it's about, and then they'll talk about it, and then once they've talked about it, they'll move on. So having the community and group mentality around reading is going to strengthen everyone's comprehension skills. Also, I like doing this as a whole class, so if I'm doing a read aloud, we'll stop, pause, and discuss what's going on, and that continued practice is just going to increase the comprehension skills of all of the students in the classroom. To encourage the development of vocabulary for my students, I like to create a word wall. I teach 3rd grade, but I think this would be beneficial for any elementary grade. Having a display of the words that we've learned and gone through in depth, I think is very encouraging for students to continue using some of that harder vocabulary. So it's not just sight words anymore, it's more complex words that we've dove into to understand the meaning of, that they would be comfortable using in their writing. And I think having that displayed in the classroom is a good reminder for them to continuously use the more complex words that we've practiced before. To encourage a strong sense of fluency, I like to read something to a student and then have them read it back to me to practice how something should be read. I like to give them a model of how it should be read before they're expected to do it on their own. I think this gives the student the confidence going into it that they're not going in blind, and they sort of see how it's supposed to be read, and then they'll read it. To make teaching phonics pretty fun, I like to create nonsense words with my students. So we'll take different blends, digraphs, and consonants, just blend them all together and try to sound out different nonsense words. And sometimes the kids will make different meanings to the words that might, be nonsense words. But this is really fun for having them practice their phonics skills and blending of words and sounds together while making it still pretty fun. And lastly, for phonemic awareness, I think this is a continued skill that should be practiced through the student's educational career. I think especially in the younger grades, it is super important and can be done through rhyming activities. I know is super beneficial for them to be able to start hearing and identifying the different sounds and parts of words. A strategy I use for writing and to make that super fun and something to look forward to for the students is to have publishing parties. So once the students have all completed a piece of writing, whether it be a long thing or not so long, to have a publishing party where they're able to share with either a small group, the whole class, depending on how long it is, and just celebrate that writing. As a teacher, to track how our students are doing in their reading and writing skills, I think it's important that we keep an eye on our formal and informal methods of assessment. So I think doing assessments such as running records is a very good way to assess our students' reading abilities. And I think for writing, it's important for us to continuously do writing samples and assess the students' writing as they are going, so nothing comes as a surprise later on in the year, and we can kind of get ahead of any sort of frustration that might be arising for each student. Another way that we can more informally assess our students' reading and writing is through conferencing and asking them how they feel about it. Seeing how they feel with their writing and checking in with them every once in a while is going to help us stay on top of each student and their progress. An online resource that I think teachers can use to benefit their students' reading and writing skills would be audiobooks. I think this is a wonderful way to especially increase a student's comprehension skills if they're able to hear the words that they're reading as they're reading. I think it'll really reinforce some of the skills that the student might be lacking, and it might allow them to absorb the information without having to decode all the words if the task is to comprehend the piece of text and not decoding. Having a reading specialist in the school is going to be such a blessing for the teachers and the students and families and everyone involved in the education of the children. I think one way that the reading specialist can help would be to provide information to teachers and families about the most up-to-date practices that are being used to help students who are struggling with reading progress at a rate that is comfortable with them. And I think the reading specialist can really target the instruction for individual children and assessing what they might need and what track might be best for them to follow when moving forward with their reading and writing careers. Thank you so much for listening.